All right, in this video, I wanted to talk about preparing for an interview. Now, when it comes down to getting a new job, of course, most places are going to have you go through an interview process. When you are starting the interview process, just be prepared with how the process is going to go. And the way that you become prepared is you can ask how the process usually goes. When you get a response back from your application or whoever you connect with to get the process going, they'll usually tell you the method as to how they do the interviewing process. I know over the last couple of years with COVID going on, a lot of them have started becoming virtual, um, which is something you should ask about. That way you can have the proper equipment to do video recording at home or video chatting, and you can video chat wherever. So if you need to go to like a coffee shop or something, be prepared for it. Or if it's an in-person one, make sure that you have good clothes and that you know where it is, that you can show up early. And then if it is just over a phone call, be sure that you have the right environment that is quiet so that you can hear everyone that is part of the call. So when it comes down to preparing for the actual interview itself, no matter which method you use, it is going to be about knowing what you are going to be interviewing for. Now, the job itself has different qualifications or different things listed in it as like your day-to-day like task. And what you want to do is you want to prepare questions that get more details about what that day-to-day looks like for you, and then how do you participate. So I guess some of the questions that I would suggest you prepare for would include: what does day-to-day tasks look like? How do you keep track of the day-to-day tasks that you have? Who do you need to report these day-to-day tasks to? And that's it for that one, because now it expands to just more time. So same thing, but time frame being a week, which I have accomplished usually in a week of work. Who do I report to? Do you guys acknowledge if certain goals were hit depending on the job? Basically, you want to ask what the span of 1 to 2 weeks look like for you. And then you want to, of course, expand it a little bit more longer in terms of time. But at this point, it's not asking about day-to-day stuff. It's more about, what do you expect on a month end? What should I have done? How many hours should I have worked that whole month? And of course, you want to know how much you'll be compensated, so that will be part of your conversation as well too. So speaking of that, actually, when it comes down to having those type of questions ready, some of the questions that you may want to ask include: is the position that you're applying for, the pay, is it negotiable? What are some benefits that go along with the negotiation? How often can you expect to have evaluations for raises or promotions or for bonuses? You also want to ask on what are the methods of how they will be paying you. You want to ask how frequent they're going to be paying you. That's all I could think about for like the financial part. Some questions that you really want to make sure that you have that really go into more details as to like interviewing is to have some personal questions for the actual interviewer. So normally I ask them, how long have they been with the company? What are their thoughts about the company? What type of changes have they seen in the company since they started working there? How does management work in terms of being promoted and being in those types of roles? Or how does, one be able to grow within the company? How did they do so? Where did they come from, in the sense of like, what job did they have before they started this one? I would ask them, do they recommend this job to their friends and family? I also ask them, depending on the job itself, if they have other applicants that are also applying, how many other mm, it's starting to lead towards my follow-up questions towards the end, but I want to go over a couple more to ask the interviewer. The last few that I would usually ask them would include, when you do get started with the job, who do you, like, I guess, not necessarily report to, but who can you use as a resource to learn more about your job? What resources are available to learn, so that you can have better chances of advancement in the company? And then the last question I would usually ask them includes, when things get tough or when there is pressure within the company, how does the team or how does the company communicate with everybody? Especially if there's big changes made within the company, it might not be within your role itself. Just ask them basically, when conflict comes up, how does management address it? How does the company address it? And does you as the employee get informed on it? And how does, like, everyone communicate in the company? That would pretty much be questions I would ask before my follow-up questions, which I started before, which include, who's going to be the one I report to, who do I follow up with on this application, what are the next steps of this application. If they, are liking how you did your interview, I would ask them for feedback on their interview. Just ask them, was there something that they can improve on? Is there something that stuck out in the interview that they wanted to ask you more about? So you would phrase it as, do you have anything that I said during this interview process that you want to ask more questions on? I would also ask them, what are the chances of me making it to the next round? Or, what are their thoughts of me? Do they think that the skills that I presented today meet the qualifications that they're looking for in this job? And then the last question I would ask them would be, if all goes well, how soon can I get started? And what does the hiring or I forget what it's called, but the onboarding process, I think that's probably it, right? Onboarding. That way they can kind of get to that thinking of all right, they're really intrigued. They actually want to join, and they are asking the questions of what happens next. And then, basically after your interview, you want to make sure you get contact information of whoever you did the interview with, and whoever the manager for the hiring, or whoever the hiring manager is for that position, or whoever's overseeing how the hiring process works. You basically want to get somebody's information, follow up with them, and I usually do it the day of sometimes, where I say thank you for the opportunity for the interview, or the next day. And then you want to wait at least 72 hours, and then you reach back out again. And then you can follow up by asking, was there anything that you can do to improve your chances on getting, hired? Is there, other people that they're still interviewing? How far along are they in the process before they make a decision on who they're going to hire? And then the last question I would ask them would be, it's usually two questions. It's usually, is there anyone else I can follow up with? Or the other question I would ask is, when's the time that I should expect an answer of when you guys are either going to take the next step, or make a decision to go with another applicant. Probably word that a little differently, but you get the gist. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else I would ask you or tell you to prepare for an interview. And The main thing is just having a really, like, I wouldn't say bubbly personality, but make sure that you stay calm, you show the right types of emotions, don't overreact. Try to stay calm for most of it if you can. If you are someone that gets a little overexcited, make sure it's not too much for somebody who could see that as a lot. Make sure it kind of matches who your interviewer is. And if you want to, you can turn it up just a little bit, but don't go too crazy in terms of being overexcited or just not having the emotions or the feelings or like the presence of who's interviewing. Don't outmatch them and do more or less than how they're coming to that interview. Make sure you dress well, even if you are doing video ones. Make sure you look like you're a presentable person. And of course, if you're in person, make sure that you have good hygiene, you actually take care of yourself, clean yourself, have good clothes. And then make sure, if it is somewhere that you have to travel to, that you have the right transportation to get there. Make sure it's pre-planned so that it's not a rush of you trying to get there. I've had interviews like that where I didn't get to them in time because I didn't plan my ride to get there correctly. So don't let that be you. And then the last tip that I would leave you with is making sure that when you go to your interviews that you bring two things: a notebook and pen, so that you can write down the answers that you get while you're doing your interview. Plus you can make notes, and it just makes you look like a better applicant because you're paying attention. And it doesn't matter if you're on video as well too. If you show them that you are making your notes, it shows them that you care. And then the last thing I would bring, and this is if you're doing in-person interviews, is another copy of the resume and cover letter that I submitted with my application. I'd bring that with me to the interview and hand it to them so that they have it physically printed and it's not just somewhere electronically. That's all I have for prepping for an interview. Good luck.